Hey, happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to tonight's edition of Niner Chatter for this week. I'm Jack Hammer, I'm your host. And today just want to go through, have a bunch of different topics that we can discuss, but just kind of wanted to start off before we open up the phone lines to just kind of look at some of the different storylines surrounding the 49ers for today. Starting off with one of the main topics is the potential trade, possibilities for N'Keal Henry of the New England Patriots. But he was a first-round draft pick for them back in 2019. He was a guy that the 49ers actually spent a lot of time taking a look at, and that's part of the reason how they came across Brandon Aiyuk, actually. So, he's a guy who's out there that has, through his agent today, requested a trade. And so obviously that brings up a lot of conversations regarding him in the 49er land. And this is a guy who, when you look at him on film, he's a decent receiver, but there's definitely a reason I think that New England would bring in Kendrick Bourne, and then at the same time, possibly moving up N'Keal Henry. They're similar guys in terms of their size, but I think when you really look at them, there's a lot of differences to them. Kendrick Bourne, he's going to be a tough one to replace this year. He's a guy who came up with a lot of big catches, a lot of clutch catches, a lot of tough catches. He was a really good hands receiver. I know people talk about his hands as if they weren't very good, and he definitely did have his moments of the dropsies. But for the most part, he was a really solid receiver and came up with some really big receptions for the 49ers. And so I think he's a better fit, than N'Keal Henry. I think Henry's actually a step back from that. But if the 49ers feel like they want to go ahead and test the wheels on him and they're going to try to bring him in, I think a 6th or 7th round draft pick is about as high as you'd go to try to bring in a guy like Harry to the 49ers. Hey, Korean Niner, good to have you on here, and Monica. Hope you're doing well as well. It's a great Tuesday. It's the I know most of us, I think, probably had Monday off after the 4th of July holiday, so it's nice to have a Monday on a Tuesday if that's the way you look at it. We're that much closer to the next weekend already, so I hope everybody out there is doing well, and you too, Monica. A couple other things. The OTAs, that was kind of an interesting thing over this last week. Was the 49ers had lost their OTA according to Adam Schefter, and then at the same time that he comes back out and says that actually they didn't get it taken away, that it was the Niners decided to cancel that voluntarily, so it wasn't actually taken away. But I think that's really just an argument of semantics there. The 49ers were either going to cancel it on their own, or they were going to lose it. Plain and simple, they were not going to have that last OTA period. So say it however you want, but that just wasn't going to happen. And I just think that that's interesting. It's something that needs to be looked at. There's lots of ways to look at that whole OTA thing, and one of them is just the 49ers have dealt with so many injuries over the last couple of years, really over the last about 7 years specifically, and a lot of that has to do with bringing in injured players. But I just find it hard to believe that a team that's building as much as the 49ers would look at this and say, you know what, we've had enough work. We're going to go ahead and put everything on the shelf and just wait to see these guys in August. I just find it very hard to believe that these coaches, they want to have as much time with their players as possible. It's so important, and I just find it hard to believe that any head coach in the NFL or college level, or even at the high school level, if they had a opportunity to work with their players, would actually say, you know what, we put in enough work. I'm not going to see it I don't need to see it next week or for any more time this off season. We'll just catch you in a month and a half. I just find that hard to believe, and so I think there's a little bit to that story of it being taken away, a little bit more of that in that direction. So that's the OTA piece there. The second to last thing was Trey Lance. We've been hearing so much about Lance and what's going to happen there. Is Lance going to be the starting quarterback? Is it going to be Garoppolo? That's the 49ers are trying to sell you on the fact that it's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo and not Trey Lance. But there's just something about the fact that Trey Lance is out there working with Deebo Samuel this week. He's worked out with Brandon Aiyuk. He's worked spent time with George Kittle. He worked out with Mohamed Sanu. He's putting in all this work, and I just find it hard to believe that those guys are going to be spending as much time working with him as they are if he wasn't going to be the guy. I think there's a little bit more to that story that isn't out yet, and I think that's smart on the 49ers part. Really, they don't want to come out and put a ton of pressure on this guy and say that Trey Lance is going to be our starter and he's going to be the guy from day one. It makes sense to kind of work him in, let him earn his role through going out and performing during training camp. So we got about start of July, end of this month. I think it's the 30th or 31st of July. We're going to get to see the first training camp practice, and that's when this whole process is going to really kick off. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch that play out, especially over the first 3 preseason games when we finally, as fans, get to see Lance on the field in a 49er uniform and judge him for ourselves instead of basing it off of people that are at practice and where we can't see it. So that's my feeling on Trey Lance. And going to jump into this real quick, and got a whole bunch of folks over in the comment section. I see Keneal over there and Jesse and a bunch of folks over there, and it's great to have you all on, and Vincent. So, but we have a couple of callers already waiting on the line. We're going to jump to those in a minute. But the main topic that I wanted to have for tonight, if you guys are going to call in, would be what are your reasons to be optimistic about the 49ers in 2021? I know that there's times when I come on here and, I might not seem like I'm the most optimistic when it comes to the 49ers. I might, with some of the things that I say, there might not always come across that way. But I'm pretty optimistic with this 2021 team, of the outlook that they're going to be able to come out and have a good season this year. I don't know if I wouldn't go as far as to say that I think this is a Super Bowl team, but they definitely have the parts and the pieces to go out and have a really fun, exciting season and challenge for a Super Bowl. And once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. But if they're going to get there, they're going to have to overcome some things that have never happened before. It's either going to be a rookie quarterback getting to the Super Bowl for the first time, or actually this has happened once before, where a quarterback that lost in his first Super Bowl came back and was able to get back to the Super Bowl. That's only happened once before with a quarterback who wasn't a Hall of Famer. And I've mentioned this a few times. I don't think that there's anybody who believes that Jimmy Garoppolo is a future Hall of Famer in the NFL. But that's really the historical part of this season, is that the 49ers can do it. I think they're going to make history, or they would make history if they're able to actually reach the Super Bowl this season. So we'll see how it goes. But definitely want to get this party started, get some optimistic phone calls in here. And we're going to start off with Ryan. He was the first on the list tonight.
What up?
How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Good. I'm good. Let's go Niners.
Yeah. I was watching some footage earlier today of Gilbert Brown, and I wanted to know real quick, do you think Gilbert Brown deserves to be in the Hall of Fame?
I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but he was really good for a short period of time. I don't think he really played with Green Bay for that long. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers.
I think it was 10 years.
But was it 10 years? Was it 10 full years that he was there? Well, that's longer than I remember.
At least in the league,
but,
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Because I remember him, he was a dominant force in the middle of that Green Bay.
He was a thorn in our side.
Yeah, big guy. He'd make that big play, and he'd start digging the ditch to throw you in there, right? That's what he used to do. He used to start acting like he was digging with the shovel.
The grave digger, they called him. I didn't know that until I watched a little highlight today.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think he's necessarily a Hall of Famer, but that's a tough spot to be a Hall of Famer because he's more of a run-stuffing defensive tackle. A lot of times those guys, they don't get the recognition that maybe they deserve. Kind of like Michael Carter of the 49ers. He was a really good 49er, but I don't think anybody would want to say that he's a Hall of Fame-worthy candidate.
So I am optimistic for the 49ers in the fact that if we can get Trey out on the field, I think our offense gets opened up more. And whether we have a really successful season or just a normal season, something over 500, I think that will lay the groundwork for an even better season next year because they'll figure out what works, what falls in line, what doesn't, how to reapproach things. And I think that will that will help us out more than anything. As long as the defense can stay healthy and some key players on the offense, I think we've got a pretty good season ahead of us. If Trey's there, I still don't have confidence in Jimmy with what Kyle can call and what the league knows Jimmy can do.
Mm-hmm. I think that I like your point though about Trey Lance, because that creates a whole lot of enthusiasm for everybody around the 49ers. I think almost all the fans would be really excited to have him come in and be the starting quarterback because of what he represents as far as the future of the team. So from that standpoint, there's definitely a lot to be optimistic about, because if he can come in and be the player that the 49ers expected when they took him at 3, it's going to be sky's the limit. People are going to be jacked up and ready to go every week to watch him play, I think, at least in the beginning.
I want to see Brandon Ayuk hit on the clear out route. That's the one biggest thing I want to see this season, because then they have to respect it, and then our running game opens up even more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, either that deep route down the sideline, or even a deep post like the one that was missed in the Super Bowl. Hitting that deep ball on any of those kind of plays is something that we really haven't seen a whole lot of.
Or hitting Kittle deep.
Last 4 years. Correct. Yeah, because the only time that those guys are usually hit are on shot plays where they're called, and it would be great to watch if they're able to start hitting, that maybe hit those deep balls on a play that's not necessarily designed to have the deep shot as the only play. Because they've had those throws down the field where it's a play action in the backfield and they're sneaking Juszczyk out or sneaking Kittle out down the sidelines, but to be able to have it just come off of just the regular design of the play would be fantastic, and something that I think is part of why Kyle Shanahan wants to make this change.
So I've got one more big question for you. You're way better at this than I can even, I can't even fathom how you know so much about this type of stuff. But I feel if we were going to make a trade for N'Keal Harry, that we wouldn't just be going there to get him. We'd be trying to pick up Gilmore too at the same time. So what would a trade package like that look like, do you think?
I think that'd be really hard because of the amount of, if they're looking, you're talking.
And I'm thinking Jimmy goes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jimmy's one of the, and then what's picks, okay. And are we eating his contract or?
Well, that's a minimum of at least a second round, because there's no firsts. There'll be at least a minimum 1 second round along with Garoppolo to try to get that package. But in that situation, I think the Niners would be forced to eat some of Garoppolo's contract to help the Patriots out, which is part of what I know they don't want to do that because they want to just try to get away from him playing as much as possible. So it'd probably be Garoppolo and a couple of second round picks, which at this point right now I think is really tough from the pick standpoint because you don't have that first round next year or the year after that, and you have a lot of free agents. So I think it'd be a little bit tougher for them to make that big of a move right now, if that makes sense. Yeah, but I get what you're saying, and I think they might be able to do one or the other, but I don't know about both.
I wouldn't go for Harry if you couldn't get Gilmore. I would rather get our secondary a little more beefed up, especially with somebody like Gilmore. You know what I mean? The talent there, and put him next to Verrett, and I mean, people are going to have trouble. How's Russ going to cook?
Well, I hear you, and I think the secondary is going to be one to pay attention to, because I think there's a really good chance that you're going to see Ambry Thomas be a really good cornerback in this league, and Deommodore Lenoir has potential too as well. So I think these guys, although they were 3rd and 5th round draft picks, can actually step up and do pretty well. I'm dating myself a little bit here, but when you go back to the 86 draft, the 49ers, I think in the 3rd round, picked up Don Griffin and Tim McHire. I think they were taken in the 3rd and the 5th round in 86. You go back and check that, but I know it wasn't a first or second. I know they didn't have any first round picks, so they started picking in the 2nd round. But I think both of those guys came after round 3, and they became the starting quarterbacks for the 88, 89 Super Bowl teams. So there's potential there, and it's just a matter of is the secondary coach able to coach these guys up? Do they think that these guys are capable of being long-term starters in the league? So, or some of their thought process around there would be really interesting to know that. which I'm sure you won't hear for a few years until that all comes out. But it'll be a lot of fun to watch them the way they play.
All right. Well, that's all I got for you, sir.
Awesome. Hey, Ryan, I appreciate you calling in tonight and always hitting me up on Twitter. So I really appreciate it. And you go out and have a good evening.
You too, sir. You have a wonderful day.
All right. You too. All right. Ryan makes some really good points there with the secondary. And, Stephon Gilmore would be a guy that I would like to see the 49ers pick up. I don't know if they have the firepower with their the lack of draft capital after the trade that they made last year for Trey Lance. That's going to be a tough one for them to work with. So we'll see how that goes. And Jeremy is our resident Jimmy Garoppolo fan. And he says he gets it now. We're intentionally trying to get Jimmy angry so that he can win it all this year. He likes my strategy. And, I'm just going to shoot this out really quick before I get to the next caller was the whole deal with Kyle Shanahan this last week. And he makes that great throw across the way into the oven, I think it was, and a fantastic throw. And people start ripping on Garoppolo. And I just, I understand that Garoppolo has his issues, and he's not necessarily a top 15 quarterback in the league. He's probably, I'd say he's at least a top 20, top 25, which is pretty good. And to think that the way that you hear people talk about this guy, it's kind of a shame considering that what his record has been. And I understand that there's been a lot of help behind him, but the fact that he's been able to do it, and none of these other quarterbacks have, with that record, it is something to take a look at. And one last thing on this is, if you were ever over at the Santa Rosa Press Democrat back in the before the end of 2012, you probably would remember the great Smither wars of that era, the back and forth between the Alex Smith fans and the Alex Smith detractors that took place throughout the majority of his career, and especially in 2011 when I started really paying attention over there in 2012. And the stuff that was said about Alex Smith makes the stuff that you hear with Jimmy Garoppolo pretty tame. So those were some good days over there. If you made us through those, you deserve a medal, I think. Let's jump on to our next caller. And we got the great Waruna. How you doing, Waruna?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. What's going on?
It's good. Like yesterday, we had a day off, so
there you go.
Fully refreshed.
Nice.
So you were talking about some optimism. So it's kind of a difficult thing when it comes to 49ers, because even this season, from starting from the drafting Trey Lance and everything, it's been an emotional roller coaster, isn't it? Because you draft Trey Lance, then finally you are happy, then come training camps and stuff, then you get to know the injuries are happening all over again. Kyle does not have any clue. Then they get training camp violations, Jeff Wilson's injury, you get to know in the Bay Area from the national media, they just don't tell exactly what's going on within the organization. Even this last state of the franchise thing, we don't see any of the quarterbacks. So it's kind of I don't know. It's hard to, how would I say, even though they want us to be faithful, sometimes it's hard to trust them.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you on that. And that's one of those things. When I watched that show, I didn't really put a whole lot of. It wasn't something that really bothered me a whole lot at the time, because I kind of understood kind of what was going on there, and the fact that they didn't get into the quarterbacks at all makes sense with everything that's been going on. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. In hindsight, when you look back at it, it's really odd for a team that went out and just spent all the capital that the 49ers did to go out and get a quarterback, the quarterback of the future, a guy that supposedly they think they're going to be able to build around and reach these great heights with, and there's absolutely zero mention of him throughout the whole show. That was quite interesting.
Yeah, but it seems like they haven't figured out a proper plan. I mean, right now, I don't think Jimmy has any trade value. The reason is it's buyer's market. Because if you look at what Alex Smith trade from Kansas City to Washington, when it was happened, Smith had 4 winning seasons. He went to playoffs all these 4 years. He was in a good health condition, but still what he got was third round pick plus another player. I can't remember the name. So if Smith got that, Smith is a better quarterback than Jimmy. So I'm not sure whether at this moment, entire NFL knows that we are going to go with Trey Lance. So whether Jimmy has at least 4th round pick value, I'm not sure about that. So that's why I'm a bit puzzled about why 49ers are just trying to play like the rest of the league doesn't have any clue what they're going to do. I mean, it's one thing hiding what they were interested at the draft, but it's not a secret anymore. Because if you're not sure that the quarterback that you spend 3 first round picks not going to start in near future, then maybe you are even not sure about the decision that you made already. So I think it's time they have to come clean about this.
Yeah, I think it's a situation. There's a couple of things working against them with Garoppolo. One is his health has been so up and down, so you don't. That's hurting them. That's the one of the things that's hurting them. And then the reduced salary cap and the fact that he's got such a big cap number is the other piece that's playing against them. And the reason that plays against them isn't because necessarily teams aren't wanting to get him in, but a lot of those teams that are going to want to bring him in are going to also want to reduce his salary in some way, I believe. And that's where he, I think, is able to kind of really dictate what his future is. Whether he's going to go to a team that he wants to go to, that's the only way he's going to approve the trade. Otherwise, he's going to say, you know what, you guys can just pay me your full money. I'll sit on the bench. I'll work my butt off, try to recuperate my image, and then come out next year and choose my own team when you guys release me, and I'll go out and be the guy that I want to be anyway. So I just think the 49ers are in a really tough spot with the way that contract was laid out. I know they can get out of them at any point, which is to their benefit. But just because of the cap hit, and I know there was discussions, or we've heard rumors that there was trade options for Garoppolo before the draft that they turned down, and it'd be really interesting to get the details of what those trade options, what those offers were that they turned down, to be able to see what they were offered. Was it a turn down because they turned it down because the draft picks or whatever the compensation coming their way was going to be not what they expected, or was it a situation where they liked the trade and then Garoppolo turned it down? But it'd be really interesting to hear that, because from everything I've heard, there's at least, and I'm sure you did too, there's at least some reports of discussions going on to move him. So it'll be interesting to watch how this plays out. But I don't expect Garoppolo to be on the team by the end of the trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting what you said about it, because if you think about the whole scenario, 49ers were like totally brave enough to throw 3 first round picks to get a quarterback, basically mortgage the future. I mean, if they were able to make their minds to pull up that trade, why can't they do less I would say critical decisions, pulling away from Jimmy? So I think that makes to the point where you're saying, but there's something going in the organization, either, as you said, Jimmy is just saying no to the trades, or someone in the organization still wants Jimmy even though Kyle does not want Jimmy. There is something unexplainable happening.
I think that it might. And this is obviously just my opinion without having discussions with anybody, right? But my opinion is that the only reason that he's still a member of the organization is because they want to get something for him. They don't want to just release him. He's an asset. They see him as an asset, and they want to. If they're going to move on from him, they want to get something in return that they can utilize in one way or another, whether it's a player or a future draft pick. And at the time of the draft, they just weren't receiving the compensation that they were looking for. That's kind of the way that I see it. but it could have been the other as far as Garoppolo turning it down as well. But it's going to be. I definitely I think for me that's the whole reason is they wanted to get some value and they haven't gotten the value back yet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, do you have anything positive to say though? Do you have anything optimistic?
Positives, yes. Actually,
let's get off of Jimmy. Let's talk about something fun.
Was fun, yes. Actually, I wrote in one article like 1 week ago about have the 49ers improved from 2020 season. So my generic answer is yes, they have improved, and I believe they are in a better position to make it to the playoffs. I'm not sure how far they can get go in the playoffs. I mean, they are a Super Bowl contender. I do not believe so. But basically, some of the areas that I looked at is, for example, special teams. Special teams is something that we can easily fix because special teams alone did cost us at least 4 games last year. Even the first games against Cardinals, that Wisnowski's punt was blocked when we were leading 10-0. So it was a disaster from there. Even that, I think, Saints game, Packers game. So we had so many mistakes. So it's up to the coaches how to make it better. Quarterbacks, definitely, we are improved whether Jimmy stays or not. I think we are fine. Then offensive line, again, we are fine. But one real aspect I mentioned was that in terms of 49ers success in this season, rely on how good Kyle Shanahan is going to act as a head coach plus a play caller. Because last year, if you remember the game, Cardinals game that we won with CJ playing, first half, it was like under 1 minute, he called a pass play. And CJ fumbled the ball. Cardinals almost ran into a touchdown, but we managed to stop it. So again, Nick Mullens, that Cowboys game, there were some plays shouldn't have been pass plays. So Kyle has to make sure that he needs to be patient. He doesn't need to win the games by 50 points. I mean, win is a win in NFL. Even if by a single digit, it's fine. So if Kyle can learn from these mistakes in terms of play calling as a head coach, I believe that's why he went ahead with Trey Lance, because he realized that I cannot win with Jimmy. I need good backups. He has Rosen. So I'm positive that at least we can win 10 games. But if things go well, my prediction is we are going to win 13 games. So 13-4 is my prediction, because my argument is even with all the horrible things happening, we won 6 games last year and we were playing a tough schedule. This year we have 5 games against teams which finished last in their division. So some road games, Bengals, Lions. I know Lions fans don't like when I say Lions are winning, but I believe the schedule and everything works into our advantage. So if we can, play out things sensibly, if Kyle can play out things in a way that we can just win the game, and especially running backs. Now, one of the weaknesses that 49ers had was we were not able to finish out games. During the fourth quarter, other team would come back and put them under a lot of pressure. So with the Trey Sermon, Wayne Goldman and everything, we have reached that even with the injuries, I believe we should be able to get it going, and definitely 10 wins. That's for sure. That's what my feeling is. And most probably, we will go for that 13-win margin.
All right. So I'm writing you down right now. 10 to 13 wins for Waruna.
Yes.
Yep. And if it's anything less than that, then we have to all come back on here at the end of the year and yell at you.
Yes. I owe you a butterfly if that happens.
All right. Okay. Oh, that's awesome. 10 to 13 wins. That sounds about right. That's a kind of a pretty big range there, but But yeah, I can see that very, very easily for the 49ers if they just do what they're supposed to do this year. So I'm gonna jump on and take some other calls.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you reaching out and joining the show again tonight, Runa, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you again soon.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good night.
All right, you too. And we got a couple of other guys here on the line, and we're gonna get there in just a second. But just want to take a look at a couple of the comments over here. Josh mentioning that. There's too much hate on Jimmy. We all want Lance, but we have a great opportunity to have him sit and learn while Jimmy gets another chance at this thing. Well, what I'm going to say is I don't think that it's hate on Jimmy to say that you want Lance to be the starter. Okay, let's not act like that. Let's not have that be hate. When I'm talking about the negative stuff on Garoppolo, it's specifically, when you see Kyle Shanahan make that throw, and it's like no wonder he doesn't want. No wonder he doesn't want Garoppolo. There's no way Garoppolo can make that throw. Or, I mentioned it earlier today. You watch there were some folks during the run up to the draft, and you see Justin Fields make a throw down the sidelines, and it's, there's no way that Jimmy Garoppolo can make that throw. And then you turn on the Cardinals game, and you see him run basically the same play and hit it down the sideline for a big gain to down the right sideline of for the 49ers. So, it's just, almost any time you see something it's slander against Jimmy Garoppolo. We know that he struggles. We know that there's issues there, but I do think that you have to appreciate the fact that he was 22-8, and I think you can appreciate it while also understanding that there was a lot of from the defensive side that went into that. There was a lot of help from the running game and other portions of the game, but the fact that he was able to be at 22-8 when every other quarterback that's walked through the door hasn't even been able to sniff that. I think you have to at least appreciate that portion of his game, and I know that's kind of what the 49ers are trying to sell. And I'm gonna go ahead and I know I've been harsh on Jimmy and Garoppolo, and I still will be, but at the same time, I don't think it's a situation where we have to look at him and just rip on constantly and act like he can't make plays, because he can. He's just not a guy like Patrick Mahomes or anything like that, the guy that they passed up on. Mike mentions what 49er defensive position will Trey Lance help the most and hurt the most? And this is an interesting question. I want to hit this one really quick before we move on to Korean 49er and Amin, who are holding on. I would say that the one that he's going to help the most is going to be the pass rush. The pass rush could be helped the most, and the reason I said is I have a feeling that with Trey Lance at quarterback this year, you're going to see a heavier emphasis on the run game, and that heavier emphasis on the run game is going to allow the defense to be off the field more often. So if you're able to have your pass rushers sitting, resting, getting ready to go, that's only going to help them. So I don't know if there's a position that I would say it's going to be hurt the most, because they all kind of play off of each other. If your pass rush is able to improve because you have Trey Lance out there, that improved pass rush is going to help your secondary. It's going to help your linebackers. It's going to help everybody else. So I don't think there's one group. I think at the same time, if you want to say where Lance might hurt the most is if Lance doesn't play well and the run game doesn't get going, and they're getting a lot of three and outs and those kind of things, then that's where the hurt comes in. But I'm gonna go lean more towards the fact that I think Trey Lance could actually help the defense out by keeping them off the field because of the rush being a bigger part of the running attack, really chewing up the clock as you go through. And then, can anyone believe Jack almost got in a fight over Joe Montana? That's true. It's a true story. 1991, we're coming off the practice field. We stayed out, and me and the backup quarterback, and we were throwing balls back and forth to each other as towards the end of the season. And I don't really remember why. I know we were having a heated discussion over Montana and Young, but this part of it became something about Montana getting injured, and I didn't like that fact too much. So, that got a little bit more testy. There was no argument. There was no, chest bumping or anything like that. But there was definitely some heated conversations between the two of us. So it was kind of. So then me and my pal, we just picked up our ball bag and said, let's get off the field before any trouble happens. So let's jump into Oh boy, that should have told that story. Let's jump into our next call. We got Korean 49er on the line. How you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good. What's on your mind?
Got several team-related questions and then a WWF-related question for you.
Oh, okay.
So, my first point is if Jimmy does end up being the starter for Game 1, I'm going to support him because if he fails, then the team fails. And I don't believe any fan wants that. I mean, that's not what being a fan of the team is for. If Trey beats out Jimmy, that's another situation. We can deal with that as we go. The main issue with Jimmy is it's twofold. Whenever someone gets kind of close to him with pressure around his legs, he gets jittery real quick and makes suspect decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second part is after that is in several of the seasons he's played, he's gotten injured in very early weeks of the season and not been able to continue playing anymore for whatever the reason. I mean, that automatically kind of handicaps the team no matter what. That's just how I see it. The second point is, do you see Fred Warner being signed before the deadline, whatever the deadline day is, the first day of training camp or report day? I can't recall what day that is off the top of my head.
Well, I don't think there's a deadline because he's signed throughout this year, so there's no deadline as far as that goes. And it seems to me like it's almost a game of where I don't know the specifics of it, but it seems to me like there's a little bit of they're playing chicken a little bit. Fred Warner and the linebacker from Indianapolis are both in line to get new deals, and I think the two of them are kind of looking at each other saying who's going to move first, because whoever moves first is probably going to get the lesser of the two deals. So I think that's part of what's holding this thing up is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking also. And the last question, and the third team-related point is, I think this team has been kind of had a little bit of PTSD since that Super Bowl, into the 2020 Super Bowl, just because they want to go on revenge tour, whatever the number you want to add, and it's like, guys, that season's, to me, it's dead and buried now. We need to continue. We need to worry about trying to be the best team we can in 2021 and beyond, not try to avenge 2019. You should have done that in 2020, but that's just how I see things.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm with you on that whole revenge tour stuff. There's no need for that kind of stuff. The deal was, and I mentioned it earlier. For example, I know that it's different eras. The '83 49ers losing a bad game to the Washington team in the NFC Championship game in '83 because of a couple of bad calls that really cost them. They didn't come out and say there was a revenge tour. They said they were angry. They didn't like the calls and whatnot, but they came out in '84 and just absolutely destroyed everybody and went out and won the Super Bowl. There was no talk about revenge tours. I mean, it was a different time. You didn't have all the media was still around, but it wasn't, you didn't have, that was, there was definitely no Twitter or anything like that. There was no internet even at that point, right? So it was, you weren't getting, it was a quick soundbite. So it wasn't quite as, they weren't out in your face as much as they are now. So who knows, maybe that's how maybe those guys were saying that to each other back in those days, but doesn't seem like it.
Yeah. I don't think Bill Walsh would have wanted a revenge tour. They just said, hey, we're going to work hard for next season and try to be the best team we can and try to make it to another Super Bowl and win it. That's what
exactly.
Bill would have said. So
exactly.
Crossed my mind, if the team does not have the record it wants, it has a sub 500 season, I could see them. I don't think they'll fire John Lynch, but they may move him to like a vice president type position because he is he's a good face of the franchise to keep the pressure away from Jed, and then they'll advance Adam Peterson. That's just what I see. But,
yeah, I agree that they would move John Lynch first. He'd be either fire him or demote him or do something to change his title where he's not in charge of the football ops.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
What's to say? Who was your favorite heel from the old WWF days?
Oh, my favorite heel? Shoot. That's a tough one. Roddy Piper would probably be the guy for me.
Okay.
So that's going way back though. And that's probably partly because back in that was, he was part of WrestleMania 1, and so he was part of my whole introduction into, pro wrestling was right around that time period. My dad had been a fan of wrestling for a long period of time, but he wasn't necessarily instrumental in around me getting involved with wrestling. That was more me and my buddies just catching it and started watching it, and that was right around the time WWF started taking off, and you were starting to see wrestling more and more on ESPN, and then eventually WWF took off, and but Rowdy Piper was the original heel, right? Roddy Piper. Jake the Snake was always a heel as well. The guy dropping the snakes on him after he beat you, that was always a funny one. So, that's how about yourself? Who would you say, real quick, before I jump on to the next call?
I did like Ravishing Rick Rude because he always tried to woo the women, but he was ripped and just going for whatever reason.
Ravishing Rick Rude. How about the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase? He was another heel as well.
He had the best laugh of all. So
that's true.
I'll tell a another WWF story next time. It involves my brother and working backstage at a SmackDown taping. So.
Okay, let's save that one for next time, just because I got some folks here that I want to jump to, but I really appreciate you taking the time to call in tonight.
Yep. Thank you, Jack.
All right, thank you. Have a good one.
You too.
All right, so let's go over here and take a look. Hey, Tommy, good to have you on with us tonight. Vincent asks, will Lance help our defense with facing mobile quarterbacks and dealing with him in practice? Yeah, that's definitely something that's going to be helpful. I know that they've done that where they've used certain players and that are fast guys to be able to go out there and do that. But if you could have a quarterback that can do that, that'd be great. The only thing there is I don't see them using Lance during the season if he does become the starter. They won't be using him on the practice squad. So that's the only downside with that one there. And then going back to the WWF portion of that Korean Fighting Irish, I'm going to throw this one up here. Peter asks, Jack versus Grant in a fist fight, who wins? And then he says that his money's on me. And I'll tell you what, I think if Grant and I got in a fist fight, I'm going to put my money on Grant because Grant knows a whole lot more about boxing than I do, and I might be a little stronger than him, but he's kind of he reminds me of one of those wiry guys. You just don't know where he's going to come from, and he's got the maybe some skill from spending watching all the boxing film with his dad. With his dad, Mr. Cohen was he's a big boxing guy, lot of history there. And so I'm going to put my money on it. I think it'd be a pretty good match. I might be able to get a few punches in, but I think Grant's just going to be too fast for me, and he's just going to wear me down. So I'll put my money on him. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. We'll see. Maybe one of these days, we can have a all 49ers SI. What do you call it? Training combine. We can run some 40s. We can lift some weights, that kind of stuff. Maybe that might be a little bit easier way of doing it. Monica has faith in me. She says that I'd be able to rock him. I don't know. I might. We'll see. Let's go. Let's go on to our next call. We got a couple of folks on here, and we're going to go with. Oh, look at that! He sold out his Jimmy Garoppolo jersey for a Trey Lance jersey. How you doing, Amin?
I'm good. I was tired of wearing the Jimmy Garoppolo jersey, so I had to switch.
There we go, big fiver.
This shouldn't even be called Niner Chatter. It should be called Niner Chatter WWF Chatter. Because everybody asks you WWF questions with the Niner topics, so it should be called Niner WWF Chatter.
Well, the WWF thing actually, the whole reason the WWF thing came is a guy who is no longer doesn't call in for whatever reason. I think it's because he's asleep right now. Gavin from Wales, he had called in with one of the first shows, and he was all excited about it. And we were getting right towards the end of the show, and I said, well, let's talk about that in more detail next week. And then, poof, he hasn't shown up. I think he's afraid to talk WWF with me. I think that's what it is, right, Gavin? I know you're probably asleep right now, not hearing this, but when you do watch it, I'm calling you out, buddy. So I mean, what do you got going on? What do you think? What are some of your reasons for optimism for the 49ers this year?
Hey man, Trey Lance. I'm gonna say it. I'm repping the jersey. That's a sign of optimism because Trey Lance, you can do a lot with Trey Lance. You could run read option with Trey Lance, and guys like Mostert and Trey Sermon, like those guys can have over 1,000 yards rushing. If Mostert if he stays healthy, but and when the Lamar Jackson 2019 season when he had his MVP season, you would run the read option. You don't know who would get the ball. It would be Mark Ingram or Lamar Jackson, and Mark Ingram ran for 1,000 yards that season. So I wouldn't be surprised if I see Trey Sermon run for those 1,000 yards. And you could do a lot in that offense with Trey Lance in that offense. And I feel like Trey Lance is going to be a huge boost for us. And also some of those guys that are coming back healthy, like Bosa. Who else coming back healthy? Bosa's coming back. Garoppolo's also going to be back healthy. I'm not saying Garoppolo's anything crazy, but it's still good to have a starting quarterback instead of Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard because we can't win games with them.
Yeah, I like your kind of where you're going there. I think you're basically looking at Trey Lance and all these newcomers, right? And what they're going to bring to the table. Aaron Banks and Trey Sermon, obviously. Trey Lance is going to be a big part of that when he gets onto the field. Definitely agree with you there. It's going to be Nick Bosa. I think he's going to be able to be healthy. Everything that points to him to be back 100% this year, and it's going to be really fun to watch him get after it as well. So I'm kind of with you there as far as if you had to make a prediction right now for a record, what would you put out there?
Ooh. I don't remember exactly what I said when I did a record prediction video on on Benjamin Kemperman's channel, but I remember I said the only games that I see them logically losing is to the Colts, and I didn't know if I said the Titans. I said the Colts, the Seahawks one time. And I don't think we're going to lose to the Packers. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to play. So I'm going to go somewhere around that 13-4, 14-3 range. I'm confident in my Niners this year.
Yeah.
And mainly because the schedule is pretty darn easy. We play, like Maruna said, we play teams like the Bengals, the Texans, the Lions, the Eagles. If our team is healthy, we should be killing those guys. And like the Cardinals, I get that they got better, but we could beat them with Jimmy Garoppolo. We could beat them with Jimmy Garoppolo and everybody healthy twice a season. So, if Trey Lance starting, I could still see it. And also, one thing about Trey Lance is that with Trey Lance, it'll help the defense with mobile quarterbacks because our division is filled with mobile quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, Matthew Stafford. I guess not a mobile quarterback, but we struggle against those guys that are mobile. We struggle against guys like Kyler Murray, and I know because I've been to like some of those games where last year. I mean, not last year, 2019. And I'd watch like the Cardinals versus 49ers game, and I'd be at the game, and Kyler Murray's running circles around our team. Like, Nick Bosa can't get after him, Dee Ford can't get after him, and we'll be lucky if we get 1 or 2 sacks on those guys. So Trey Lance, it'll be help them in practice because Trey Lance is also a mobile quarterback. So it'll help them in practice with a guy like Trey Lance who's mobile.
Yeah, and you're the second one that's kind of mentioned that. I think the thing that's going to help the most against these mobile quarterbacks is going to be Samson Ebukam. I understand what you guys are saying about Trey Lance, but if he's a starting quarterback, he's not going to really be. They're not going to have him running around on the scout team. At least I don't think that they would. Wouldn't make sense considering he's your guy. But Samson Ebukam is a guy who has shown the ability to really keep these quarterbacks in the pocket. These guys that are really athletic and can move around and cause trouble. And part of that I think is because of the way that he rushes the passer. Isn't one where he's just speeding around off the edge. It's usually more of a controlled rush where he's in the chest of the tackle, driving him back, keeping his eyes in the backfield, and then able to shed and go get him. But I think that's how we're going to see the whole defense improve when it comes to the mobile quarterbacks. And I'm with you on that on the record. I think when I first looked through it and we went through because I remember right after the schedule came out, we did the All 49ers group. We did a roundtable. We're going through our prediction for the season. I think I was at 13-4 for the record. I only had them losing I know the Titan game was one of them. I think I had them losing one of the Seattle games possibly.
Yeah.
And there's a couple other ones that were kind of goofy ones in there, but because that always happens. There's always going to be one loss that nobody's going to think about that always pops up. So, but you're right, and I know that I think it was Korean no, it was Waruna that mentioned it, where, they got the Lions, the Bengals, and the Bears. Lions and Bengals and Bears. Oh my, right? For their schedule. Get it?
And I
That's a
think
bad
they
joke,
should.
but
I would start Trey. Now I know this is a bold thing to say, but I would start Trey Lance week 1 against the Lions and see how he does. See how he does in the first quarter. See how he does, because that's a team that's really not that good, but they're an NFL caliber team. See how he does against those teams. And I know it's a risky thing to say, but see how he does against those teams. I'm not saying that he's going to put up 5 touchdowns, but if he plays well, he doesn't have those turnovers. But Jimmy Garoppolo does throw like 2 interceptions per game, and maybe he has like 1 touchdown here. If he's lucky, he'll throw 2 or 3, but he'll still have that turnover to touchdown ratio is not good for Jimmy Garoppolo. So if Trey Lance has 2 touchdowns, maybe throws 1 pick or 0 interceptions, I'll be happy with Trey Lance starting to see how he does against a team like the Lions and the Eagles.
yeah, the only thing I'm going to say on that is if you're going to start him week 1, you need to be prepared to start him all 17 games.
Yeah.
Because once he's the guy on the field, you can't pull him back out and insert Jimmy Garoppolo, because if you have to start doing that, it really messes with everything. So if you're going to go with Trey,
a lot, it messes with Trey Lance's confidence a lot, right? That's the thing. It's a risky thing to do, because if you do, but it loses confidence. Because look at what they did with Tua. Dolphins did with Tua Tagovailoa. He wasn't playing good in some games. He wasn't playing good against the Broncos, so they took him out of the game. They put in Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Ryan Fitzpatrick won the game. So that diminishes the rookie's confidence. You don't want to do that to the rookie, and the media will be all over it. But I would put in Trey Lance week 1. I feel I'm confident. I'm a Trey believer. But yeah, and I have a question. If Kyle Shanahan's watching this, if you saw that clip on Twitter of him throwing it into the pizza oven, why weren't you playing quarterback in the Super Bowl? Emmanuel Sanders was wide open. You should have told Jimmy Garoppolo to hold the playbook, and you should have stepped out on the field and freaking threw a dog to Emmanuel Sanders right down the field. You could throw it to the pizza oven. Why couldn't you throw it to Emmanuel Sanders? You should have told Jimmy Garoppolo, sit on the sideline, hold my playbook, hold my headset. I'm going to go out there. He should have done that. We would have won the Super Bowl. Kyle Shanahan would have beaten Patrick Mahomes. Come on, man.
I like that.
I don't get what was that thought process. Like, come on, man. Like, you should have taken Jimmy Garoppolo out of the game. You should have went into the game, and you could have won the Super Bowl.
Well, just imagine if he just went ahead and just made himself a player coach, how much that would help with the salary cap as well. Because his salary as the head coach is less than what Trey Lance is going to cost him this year, I think, per year. So that's a good way of putting it there. I mean, let's go ahead and just get rid of all the quarterbacks. We'll just have Shanahan be the quarterback.
I saw that. I saw the clip after coming back from like his 4th of July thing, and I'm like, damn, Kyle Shanahan is a cannon. Patrick Mahomes, who? Like, forget about Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. Kyle Shanahan has a cannon. Okay, I would love to see Kyle Shanahan making the Pro Bowl, going against Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, Damn, Kyle Shanahan has a cannon.
There you go. He always wanted to be a quarterback, he said. Well, I think he was for like a season at Saratoga High School before he ended up becoming a receiver. So, yeah, that's funny.
Last thing I want to say before I go is, you think the Niners should trade for N'Keal Harry?
Do I think they should? I'm not a super big proponent of it. I don't think that. I don't think he's an upgrade over Kendrick Bourne. I think Kendrick Bourne's a better receiver than N'Keal Henry. Or Harry, excuse me. But if they decide to bring him in, I wouldn't go any further than a 6th or 7th round draft pick for him. It's down towards the bottom of the draft. They probably, I don't know what their draft picks look like for this season in terms of in the later rounds. I don't know if they have any extras in the 6th and 7th rounds that they could possibly use to move, or at least have to back them up. But he's a guy, as I mentioned earlier. He just doesn't have the explosiveness off the line of scrimmage. He's kind of like a dime store Deebo Samuel. And what I mean by that is he does all the same things that Deebo Samuel does, but he just isn't nearly the athlete that Deebo Samuel is, so he's not going to give you that explosiveness. So, if there's a screen pass and when you throw it out there and Deebo Samuel gives you 15 yards, N'Keal Henry's going to get you, 3 to 5 yards, because he's not going to be able to get outside and make that big play. And just in the little bit of film that I watched on him from this year with New England, that's the way they used him, was very similar to how the 49ers used Deebo.
No, but I personally think this is actually one of those trades that I feel like the Niners could pull off, and they could get N'Keal Harry, because Kyle Shanahan had N'Keal Harry higher than Deebo Samuel on his draft board in 2019, and he got picked by the Patriots, so he couldn't draft N'Keal Harry. But the one thing that I heard, I don't know if this is true, but I heard that they went to N'Keal Harry's pro day and they saw him play and whatnot, and they saw Brandon Ayuk on the sideline messing around, playing catch and whatnot, and he was practicing drills and whatnot on the sideline, and that's how they fell in love with Brandon Ayuk. And people said that Brandon Ayuk will be better than N'Keal Harry. So I honestly think this is one of those trades that N'Keal Harry could come to the Niners, because some trades are just like no, Aaron Rodgers isn't coming to the Niners. All these guys, like, they're not coming to the Niners. Jamal Adams not coming to the Niners. Like, some of these trades that get put out there, then that's not gonna happen. But this one I logically could see happening, and I feel like it would be a good thing for the Niners, because then that fills your wide receiver number 3, and N'Keal Harry could be a wide receiver number 2 for you. Because Deebo Samuel is injured most of the season. And it's not like how George Kittle gets injured, where George Kittle will fight for those extra yards and he'll get hurt. Deebo Samuel last year got injured working on the offseason. He broke his foot. So Deebo Samuel missed most of the season. So if you have a guy like N'Keal Harry, I get N'Keal Harry misses some games. But if you have a guy like N'Keal Harry and Brandon Ayuk on that wide receiver, as the wide receiver duo, that would be a really nice wide receiver duo. And both of those guys will help each other get better because they're former teammates from Arizona State. It kind of reminds me of having like a DK Metcalf and AJ Brown on the same team, because both those guys played in college. So it kind of reminds me of that, and I feel like it would be a good pickup for the Niners to get N'Keal Harry, especially considering you don't have Kendrick Bourne's gone, and if Deebo Samuel misses games, you have a guy like N'Keal Harry who could back him up as a wide receiver number 2 or even wide receiver number 3.
Yeah, I think Harry would be. I wouldn't foresee him being like a wide receiver number 2. I mean, like right now in New England, he's their 4th best wide receiver. So he's on the roster behind Deebo Samuel. He's behind Jacoby Myers. He's behind even Nelson Aguilar in New England. So again, with him, I just think he's a decent player. If you can get him for cheap, kind of on a bargain deal at 6th or 7th round pick, and maybe even get a 6th and Harry, give up a 6th for Harry and a 7th or something like that. I think that's a deal that you swing. But beyond that, I'm not sure. And I think that there's definitely some possibility to what you mentioned as far as they were out there, they were watching. I know they were heavy in on Harry in the draft process. And that's probably when they came across Ayuk, and there probably was some conversations between Herm Edwards and that staff at Arizona State as far as who these guys should be, and that led them in the direction that they went. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I don't think Harry's going to become a 49er, but if he does, he definitely will be the guy that can give them some depth around the 4th or 5th wide receiver position.
Yep, and the Harry thing is, I'm just basing it off what the agent said, because honestly we don't even know, because like Russell Wilson, if I remember correctly, he demanded a trade. He listed his 4 teams, and then like just recently he said, I didn't demand a trade from the Seahawks, right? So N'Keal Harry could do the same exact thing that Russell Wilson did. He could say that his agent said that he wants a trade, and he could deny it all he wants, right? Same thing that Russell Wilson did. So we honestly don't know even.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a different situation here, because I don't think that there was. In the Russell Wilson deal, I don't think there was ever anything as public as what you saw today from Harry's agent, as far as the request becoming public like that. It was all just through the media, and so it was easier for them to kind of squash that when it all came out. So yeah, anything else that you had?
Nope, that's it. I know you have some other callers, so otherwise I would have gone on here for like an hour and just, ranted, but it's all good. Well, hope you had a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll see you later.
All right, thank you very much, Amin. You have a great night.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, another great call there, Amin, with his Trey Lance jersey. It's good to see that he got that. Just kind of hitting on one of the topics that he had mentioned was, him wanting to see Trey Lance start week 1. And going that direction, and I agree with the overall belief that if you want to have, if the 49ers feel like he's going to be able to step in and be the quarterback all 17 weeks, then that's the direction you have to go. Is you have to give the rookie, whoever the better quarterback is, if that's who you go with. And if Trey Lance is anywhere close to Jimmy Garoppolo, I think you go with him to start the season, and you just plan on running with him throughout. And you have to know that there's going to be some ups and downs, but you got to be willing to kind of eat that, know that that's going to happen, and play through it. So, Tom mentions over here, Trey has to master the offense first, not playground football, and that was kind of at the beginning of Amin's call, and I agree with him. But that's all part of it, right? He's not going to get under the field unless the 49ers believe that he has the ability to get out there and make the plays. Just kind of looking through some of the other questions. Harold mentions Harry is not a good choice, and Tom follows that right up with no separation, and I agree with both of those. I mean, again, if Harry isn't able to make the starting four for the Patriots, what makes us think that he's going to make the 49ers any better? The only thing there is they're a little bit different offenses, and maybe a change of scenery, getting away from the expectations of being that first-round draft pick in New England. Maybe that helps them out because that's a lot of pressure on a guy, and maybe getting away from being the top pick and just being looked at as the bust. Maybe that's going to be something that would help him out. So one last one. Tom, again, if Jimmy keeps winning, do you take him out? And again, that goes back to really the Trey Lance thing. Even whoever the quarterback is they start with, you're not going to pull him out unless it's dire straits. Especially if it's Trey Lance. If it's Jimmy Garoppolo and he starts the season off and he starts to struggle, then it's easier to make that transition to Lance. But when you make that transition to Lance, you need to make sure that once you make that move, you stay with him throughout the entire rest of the season. You don't want to be going back and forth with these quarterbacks. That's what part of the whole reason why the 49ers were so bad in 2009, 2010 was, they had a head coach who didn't know how to manage quarterbacks, and you had Mike Singletary just playing musical chairs at the quarterback position because he really didn't know what he was doing there, didn't really know enough about the offense, and one guy would go out and play good for a week, so he'd start him the next week, and then he'd struggle, and he'd throw the other guy back out there. And the quarterback is, at the end of the day, the quarterback is the leader of the team. He's got to be a guy that everybody can believe in and rally around. And whether that's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance, you've got to know that you're going to be sticking with them through that, especially if it's Trey Lance. If it's Jimmy Garoppolo, I think the leash is short. But if you make the decision to go with Trey Lance, you're making that decision knowing that that's going to be your guy throughout 2021, unless he gets hurt, and let's knock on wood and say that that's not going to happen. So, other than that, I don't have any other topics. I know we pretty much went through it and had some really good discussions. I'm just going to end up by saying, I do have a lot of optimism for the 49ers in 2021. I went through and did an article this week. That came out on Saturday for all 49ers. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out. Really just detailing all of the rosters in the NFC West. And it came out at the end of the day. It was just, you rank them, and then the team with the best play, the best ranking got 4, the worst team got 1, and then you just add up all the numbers at the end and see who has the most points. And the 49ers were 1 point behind the Los Angeles Rams, and the only big difference there being the quarterbacks was really the biggest difference between the two. And so that just shows how small the margin is, I think, between these teams. And so I really think the 49ers have a chance to have a really fun year, put up really good numbers, and give everybody a heck of a show. And there was a comment earlier that mentioned about, if the 49ers make the playoffs, they're going to be contenders. And yes, if any team that makes the playoffs is a contender, and the 49ers, I think, have a chance to be a contender this year. I know that I'm going to continue to be bullish on the fact that I don't foresee them being a Super Bowl winner. I'm a little hesitant to say that they'll be in the Super Bowl, but I think that you're going to see a fun 49ers team in 2021 that's going to be able to make a big strides from last season and kind of get back to that 2019, winning and being the top, among the best in the NFL. So last but not least, Vincent mentioned that he's excited to see what Ambry Thomas can do. I'm right there with you, Vincent. Ambry Thomas is a guy that I really like when I watch him on film from 2019 at Michigan. I think he has potential to be a heck of a cornerback. So I'm really excited to see what he can do and what he brings to the table. So without continuing on, I'm just going to go ahead and wrap this up and just say thank you to everybody that called in. For those of you that have been commenting over in our comment section, we have some really good comments over there as well. In future shows, it'd be great to have you call in. And I know that all the folks that called in today had their cameras on and you could see them. But if you don't want to, if you just want to come in on and talk, you don't want to necessarily be on camera, you can do that. And just it has the option once you try to get in, you'll see where you can stop cam, and it just puts a little circle there. But we can still hear your voice and hear what you have to say. So just consider that for future shows. Like I said, I really appreciate everybody joining. Please make sure you take some time to subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button, and make sure you sign up for the notifications as well, so you know every time that we go live. There's going to be more and more content as the season draws closer, and then throughout the season. And last but not least, Hammer and Nails show on Thursday night, 6:30 will be on my channel, and you're not going to want to miss it. Jesse and myself have a current 49er player that will be joining us to discuss his excitement for the season and some of the different ways that he looks at the team going into 2021. And it should be a fun show for everybody. So make sure you kind of set your alarm clocks for that. 6:30 Thursday night, Hammer and Nails, Jesse and myself with a current 49er player. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great night, and see you on Thursday.